There's a moment in every marriage when the ground shifts, even if just slightly. For me, it happened one quiet Sunday morning, when my wife looked me dead in the eye and said, "Making you happy isn't my job." She said it like it was a fact, like she was quoting from some book of truths I hadn't read. I didn't yell. Didn't argue. I just stood there, took it in, and something in me, something small and essential, went quiet. And that silence? That was the beginning of everything. We'd been married 11 years. Not a bad marriage, not a perfect one either. More like a long, slow dance in the dark, sometimes graceful, sometimes stepping on each other's toes. I thought we were okay. Not fireworks and poetry anymore, sure, but solid. Safe. Her name's Rebecca. Smart. Independent. Always had that fire in her, what drew me to her in the first place. But over time, the fire stopped warming and just started burning. Conversations turned into corrections. Affection into obligation. I can't pinpoint when things shifted, but they did. You start noticing it in small ways. Like how she never asked about my day anymore. How she started saying things like, "That's your problem," or "I'm not your mother." Not cruel, not loud, but cold. Dismissive. Like I was a burden she was tired of carrying. Still, I kept showing up. Tried to do my part. I wasn't perfect, God knows. I forgot dates. Worked too late. Didn't always listen when I should have. But I never stopped trying. That's the part that stung the most. It was Sunday morning. I'd made coffee, fried some eggs, brought her a plate. She barely glanced up from her phone. I asked if she wanted to go for a walk later, like we used to. She put her phone down, looked at me with this tired, almost bored expression, and said those 7 words. "Making you happy isn't my job." She didn't even flinch. Just turned back to scrolling. Now, some men would have yelled. Stormed out. Maybe I should have. But instead, I just nodded. Took my plate, sat in the den, and chewed those words along with my eggs. And I realized, she was right. It wasn't her job. But here's the thing, when you love someone, you want to make them happy. You want that job. You don't treat it like a chore. That was the moment something inside me shut off. Not in anger. In clarity. I decided to stop caring. Not in the way you stop loving someone. No, that takes time. But I stopped trying to fix what clearly didn't want to be fixed. Stopped chasing affection. Stopped organizing little surprises. Stopped asking if she was okay when she snapped at me. I didn't pack a bag or slam a door, I just let the silence settle between us like dust on furniture nobody touches anymore. At first, she didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and just assumed it was a phase. But the days rolled by and I kept doing less. No more, "How was your day?" No more, "I thought you'd like this." I still paid the bills. Still mowed the lawn. Still did the dishes. But I stopped asking to connect. A week in, she started snapping more. I'd get passive jabs about how nobody talks in this house, or guess it's just me doing everything now, even though I hadn't changed anything, except my emotional availability. I stopped showing up with a full heart, and I think that scared her more than any fight could have. There's a certain power in pulling away slowly. It's not cruel. It's not loud. But it's deeply unsettling, especially to someone used to being the one who walks away first. And let me tell you, the silence was deafening. It's a funny thing, how you can miss something you took for granted the moment it's gone. That's what I saw in Rebecca's eyes about 10 days after that Sunday morning. She started looking at me differently, not softer, not warmer, but puzzled, almost like she couldn't quite place what was off. I was still there, physically. Still took the trash out. Still brewed the coffee every morning like I always did, only now I didn't bring her a cup. Just mine. I'd sit at the table, sip in silence, and watch the sunrise through the blinds like it had something new to tell me. She started noticing. I know, because the little complaints turned into questions. Not loving ones. Not concerned. More like field notes in an experiment she didn't know she'd launched. "You're quiet lately." I just nodded. "You didn't say anything when I told you about the thing at work." I shrugged. Said I must have missed it. She'd started making 2 dinners by then. One for her, one for me. We used to eat together, watch a show, chat about the day. Now she'd finish her meal, glance over at me as I ate alone, and then go upstairs early. The sound of her door closing became a nightly ritual. And you know what? I didn't mind. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't dancing to a rhythm that left me tired and unseen. Now let's be clear, I wasn't trying to play games. I wasn't waiting for her to beg or apologize or fall apart. That kind of thinking belongs to kids and soap operas. No, I was just done pouring myself into a cup that never filled me back. I'd been fighting for us with one hand while she pulled away with both. And I think that's when it really hit her. Because people like Rebecca, they don't notice your presence. They notice your absence. A couple of weeks in, she asked if I wanted to go to her friend's birthday dinner. Normally, I would have said yes. I'd go, make polite small talk, carry the wine bottle in, tell the same stories to the same people. But this time I said I had other plans. No details. Just a calm, unapologetic no. She didn't argue. Didn't beg. But the next day, she asked if I was okay. Now, that was new. I told her I was fine. Just tired. Of course, she didn't let it go. She followed me into the living room and sat on the arm of the couch like she used to, trying to be casual. She asked if something was wrong between us. And for the first time in a long time, I gave her honesty without trying to protect her feelings. I said nothing was wrong, at least not anymore. That I just decided to stop caring so much about things that clearly didn't matter to her. She didn't speak right away. I think she was waiting for a punchline. But there wasn't one. That's the thing about real change, it doesn't scream. It settles. From that moment on, she knew something had shifted for good. I wasn't cold. I wasn't cruel. I was detached. Like a man who'd finally accepted the weather wasn't going to change, so he stopped checking the forecast. But here's what got me. That night, she came downstairs again. No pretense, no makeup, just her in sweatpants and that old hoodie I used to love seeing her wear. She stood there for a moment, watching me do the dishes, and asked if I wanted to watch something together. And I swear to you, I almost said yes. But I didn't. Not because I was trying to punish her. But because I'd learned something about myself in those quiet days. You can't keep loving someone who treats your happiness like a burden. She was trying now, sure. But not because she missed me. Because she missed the comfort of being loved without earning it. And that's not a reason to come back. There's a saying I heard once, you can ignore a man who yells, but not a man who goes quiet. I didn't understand it fully back then. But now. I get it. I lived it. I became that man. Rebecca, she wasn't built for silence. She needed noise, little reassurances, tiny validations, the background hum of someone orbiting around her feelings. And I'd been that hum for years. Until I turned it off. By the 3rd week, the silence wasn't just mine anymore. It had started pressing down on her too. The kind of silence that doesn't just sit in a room, it sinks in. Soaks into your thoughts. Fills the cracks you didn't know were there. She started asking more questions. You're not mad, are you? Did I do something wrong? Are we okay? And every time, I answered the same way. Calm. Even. Polite, even. No, I'm not mad. No, you didn't just do something wrong. And no, we're not okay. But we've been not okay. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't sarcastic. I wasn't anything, really. And that scared her more than if I'd raised my voice or walked out the door. See, when you've been with someone long enough, they learn your emotional landmarks. And when those landmarks go missing, when you stop reacting the way they're used to, they lose their sense of direction. Rebecca was lost. She just didn't want to admit it. So she tried to bring the color back. She made dinner one night. Lasagna. The one dish she used to cook when things were good between us. She lit candles. Played one of those indie playlists she used to love. I came home, saw the effort, nodded, and sat down. We ate in silence. She looked at me across the table, searching for something. Maybe a thank you. Maybe a smile. Maybe a spark of the old me. All she got was the clink of my fork. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed, brushing her hair slower than usual. Like she was waiting for me to say something. I didn't. I just turned off the light, rolled over, and let the quiet speak for me. I think that's when the real unraveling began. A few days later, I noticed her crying in the bathroom. Not loud. Not for show. The kind of cry where someone presses a towel to their face and hopes nobody hears. And for a second, just a second, I almost reached for the door. But I didn't. Because I remembered that morning she told me it wasn't her job to make me happy. And how I'd believed, for years, that maybe it was my job to make her feel secure, seen, adored, even if I got none of that in return. That moment in the bathroom, that wasn't about regret. That was about losing control. About watching something slip away she thought would always be there. The next night, she tried to talk again. Really talk. She said she didn't like who we were becoming. That we felt like strangers. I told her I didn't become anything. I just stopped pretending. And I watched her flinch like I'd raised a hand, even though my voice never rose above a whisper. Then came the real question. The one she never thought she'd have to ask. Do you still love me? Now, I could have lied. Could have said what she wanted to hear, just to make her feel better. But lies, that's what got us here in the first place. The lie of everything's fine. The lie of I don't need anything in return. The lie of unconditional love, even when it's starving. So I told her the truth. I said I didn't know. That I was trying to figure that out. And that if I had to love someone who only showed up when they felt me slipping away, maybe it wasn't love at all. She didn't cry this time. She just sat there, stunned, like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe because, for the first time, I wasn't begging to be seen. There's something almost sacred about rock bottom, it's the place where masks fall off. Where people stop performing and start showing you who they really are. Rebecca hit her version of rock bottom on a Tuesday evening. It started with a note. Not a text. Not a conversation. A handwritten note on the kitchen counter, folded neatly next to the salt shaker. I found it when I got home from work, same routine as always, drop my keys, loosen my tie, let the silence greet me at the door. Can we talk? Just talk. Please. The please did something to me. Not because it was sweet. Not because it was vulnerable. But because I couldn't remember the last time she asked for something from me without an edge, without expectation. It wasn't a command or a guilt trip. Just a simple ask. So I said yes. We sat on the back porch. The air had that late spring chill to it. Fireflies had started showing up around the trees, blinking like Morse code from a better world. She handed me a cup of tea. Chamomile. No sugar. Just how I take it. Funny thing, first time in years she remembered that. She started talking. Slowly, hesitantly. She said she didn't know how we'd gotten so far apart. That she'd thought we were just going through a phase. That she thought I'd always bounce back because I always did. She said she didn't mean what she said that day, that it wasn't her job to make me happy. She was angry, tired, overwhelmed. And yeah, she admitted, maybe she had come to take me for granted. Maybe she thought she didn't have to show up because she assumed I always would. I listened. Really listened. She said she wanted to try again. Go to counseling. Start over. She talked about relearning each other, rebuilding. And it all sounded good. Thoughtful. Sincere. But it also sounded too late. Because the truth is, you can't just pour water into a cracked glass and expect it to hold. Love doesn't survive on repairs, it survives on presence. On everyday effort. And you can't backpedal into effort just because the silence finally scared you. I told her I appreciated her honesty. Told her I knew it took courage to say those things. But I also told her the truth I'd been holding for weeks now. I didn't trust the effort anymore. I said when someone only starts loving you better because you stop trying, that's not love, it's fear of loss. And I don't want to be loved out of panic. I want to be loved because I matter, not because I'm missing. She didn't fight me on it. Didn't scream or cry. Just nodded, slowly, like she already knew the answer but needed to hear it out loud. And then, almost as a whisper, she asked what I wanted now. I looked out over the lawn. Same patch of grass I'd mowed 100 times. Same garden she'd stopped planting flowers in. Same life, just colder now. And I told her I wanted peace. Not revenge. Not drama. Just peace. I said we could try counseling, not to save the marriage, but to help end it with grace. She flinched, but she nodded. She asked if that was really what I wanted. I told her it was what I needed. And I meant it. See, when someone says it's not their job to make you happy, they're not entirely wrong. But they're also missing the point. Marriage isn't a job. It's a partnership. And the moment one person checks out, the weight gets too heavy for one set of shoulders. I'd carried us long enough. You don't just end a marriage. You dismantle it, brick by emotional brick. And every brick has a name. The anniversary trips. The inside jokes. The playlists. The arguments you thought you'd never forget. The forgiveness you gave when it wasn't earned. You remember them all as you take them apart. Rebecca and I started therapy. Not to fix us, but to make the ending less jagged. We agreed on that. Well, I agreed on that. She nodded, but I could still see the hope lingering in her eyes. Hope that if she said all the right things, if she peeled back enough layers, she'd find the version of me who used to bring her tea at midnight and leave love notes on her car windshield. But that man, he'd gone quiet long before I stopped talking. The therapist was kind. Neutral. The kind of voice that makes you feel safe being honest, even when the honesty isn't soft. And somewhere between the third and fourth session, Rebecca finally said the thing I'd been waiting to hear. She said she thought I would never leave. That part of what made her stop trying was the assumption I'd always be there, no matter how little she gave in return. There it was. The unvarnished truth. Not cruelty. Just complacency. I sat with that. Not to punish her, but to understand it. Because for years, I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out, I was just too consistent for her to think she had to keep showing up. Friends started hearing the news. That we were separating. That we were taking space. Everyone has a take when a marriage falls apart, especially the ones who never bothered asking how things were going when you were still in it. Some people took her side. Said I was giving up too easily. That marriages go through rough patches and I should have fought harder. Others pulled me aside and said they saw it coming. That they noticed how she'd speak to me in front of others. How tired I looked. How alone I seemed, even when she was right there beside me. Family? They tried to stay out of it. That's the polite thing to do, right? Stay neutral. But I could see it in my sister's eyes the day I told her. Relief. Like she'd been holding her tongue for years and could finally exhale. That was the strangest part, how freeing it all started to feel. There's this myth that ending a marriage is only grief and shame. But for me, it was like clearing out a room that had been collecting dust and regret for years. Sure, there were tears. Late nights when the silence felt a little too sharp. But there was also something else. Clarity. I started doing small things again, things I used to love. Reading on the porch. Morning runs. Cooking for the sake of cooking, not because someone expected it. I reconnected with old friends, not out of loneliness, but because I wanted to laugh again, really laugh. That kind of laugh that bubbles up from the belly, not the throat. And Rebecca? She faded. Not overnight. But gently. Like a photo left in the sun. We had our moments, good conversations, honest ones. No venom. No bitterness. Just two people quietly realizing they had loved each other, but stopped nurturing that love until it withered. And we let it go. Together. And let me tell you something I didn't expect, I wasn't angry anymore. Because somewhere between the silence and the goodbye, I found the part of me I'd buried to keep the peace. It had been 6 months. Long enough for the dust to settle. Long enough for my heart to stop scanning every room for her presence. I was doing all right, better than all right, honestly. I'd moved into a smaller place, a one-story with creaky floors and a porch swing that made mornings feel a little more poetic than they probably were. My routines were mine again. My choices were mine. And the silence? It no longer echoed, it just was. Then one morning, she called. I almost didn't pick up. But something about the timing, early, before sunrise, before coffee, made me curious. Her name lit up the screen, and I stared at it like a test I hadn't studied for. I answered. Her voice was soft, uncertain. Not the sharp-edged woman who once said it wasn't her job to make me happy. More like someone who'd been doing a lot of late-night thinking. She said she didn't want anything, not really. Just needed to ask me one thing, and promised she'd leave it alone after that. I said okay. She paused. I could hear her exhale. Then she asked. Did I ever really make you happy? Not are you happy now? Not do you regret leaving? But did I ever? It caught me off guard, I won't lie. Because that question, buried in it was something I hadn't heard from her in years. Reflection. Not blame. Not defense. Just a need to know. I took a long breath, looked out at the sky turning pink above the trees, and gave her the truth. Yes, I said. You did. In the beginning. You made me laugh like no one else. You saw things in me I didn't know were there. You challenged me in ways I needed. And I loved you fully, no hesitation. But love isn't just about the beginning, is it? It's about showing up, especially when the shine fades and the real work begins. And that's where it unraveled. Not in some big explosion. But in the slow forgetting. The lazy disregard. The comfort that turned into carelessness. I told her she mattered to me. That she always would in some way. But she didn't see me when it counted. And by the time she did, I'd already let go. There was quiet on the other end. Not the awkward kind. The kind you sit in because there's nothing else to say. She thanked me. And that was that. We didn't talk again after that. Haven't since. And I think that's how it should be. Because closure doesn't always come wrapped in a bow or sealed with forgiveness. Sometimes it comes in the form of a quiet morning, a question you're finally ready to answer, and the peace that settles in when you realize You can let go of someone and still wish them well. You can stop caring without turning cold. You can love someone deeply, and still walk away. And most of all, you can build a better life, not because they left, but because you stopped leaving yourself behind. That's what I've learned. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.